Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Mike T. This is what we like to call the understanding room. So the basic of this is we just want to open dialogue across all social spectrums so that we can raise awareness on topics that are not regularly talked about, but really needs to be addressed. Now, I understand that I'm not here to persuade or dissuade anybody from their way of thinking. We're just here to open up some understanding so that way we can open up the dialogue for change. And that's why we call it the understanding room. So my name is Mike, but I go by MT. Um, I live right here in Austin, Texas, and I just got tired of sitting back and just listening to all the back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I just felt like it was time for us all to come together and just do some understanding and just have open dialogue and without the arguing and the bickering. Just talk about the facts and our truths on both sides so that way we can open up dialogue for everybody to see what we can do for some sort of resolution. Um, but without further ado, I got my homie on the other side, my big homie. Have him introduce himself. Go ahead and just over that big boy.
Name's Omar. I usually go by Odie. So all those that know me as Odie. Um, like Mr. Mike said, we've been friends for a while, and we come to an understanding. We're different but the same, regardless of where you're born, where you're raised in America. You're still an American,
Right.
and being able to come together, being able to show love even though you either agree or disagree or have the different opinions. That's what dialoguing should be, not hate rhetoric all the time, and I hate you because you're not like me. And yeah, definitely that's what we're here to do today.
Exactly. Hey, man, appreciate you also for doing this project with me, man, because I'm telling you, I've been trying to find somebody to just have this open dialogue with and, do this with. I appreciate you coming through, like, for real. Hopefully we can actually reach people and start some dialogue with some resolution.
Yep, that's our point, man. Making sure that we get the conversation going properly.
Right. So, first item that I got for discussion today is something that has had me thinking for a long, long, long time, ever since before the whole, George Floyd, all this other stuff. I go back to the times of where my earliest memory of, something wasn't right. I go back to the Rodney King. Um, and I remember being in school at the time and hearing about this on the news, and at school hearing my teachers and other adults tell me that America is the land of the free. And as they're saying this, and I raise my hand and say, hey, but why was this man unjustly beat on TV? And to which I get answered, that's you're too young for that. You don't understand right now. And to which that point is true. At that point, I really didn't understand. I didn't understand what my teacher was trying to shield me from. But at the time, I do. At the time, I didn't know that. But if I knew then what I know now, it would have started me as a kid growing up. Because, as a kid, you're taught to trust the police. You're taught to listen to the police and authority figures. And they're the very people that are really, you know, the person you should be looking out for. You know,
It's funny that you say that, because with us Hispanics, we're actually brought up differently than that. From the
Mhm.
very moment that we're little kids, that's actually a tool that our parents use to scare us.
Mm.
If we're misbehaving, it's we're gonna call the police on you. Le vamos a llamar a la policía, and so we're taught we don't want no, we don't want the police being called on us. So
Right.
so I was really I was really young too. Um, I think I don't remember when the exact year, but I was like 6 or 7, maybe even younger than that when it happened. And down here, I just saw it once on TV. Our teachers never spoke about it. Even when I saw it on TV, it was kind of something that was happening, kind of like in another world.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it was in the U.S., it wasn't my part of the U.S.
Right.
It wasn't until um, and we were talking earlier about how where I grew up in South Texas, growing up, we had one black person in our school, so I didn't have that connection. It wasn't until the episode of Fresh Prince of Bel Air when Will and Carlton, get arrested for driving a car that they were supposed to be driving, that I started realizing, like, whoa, man, there's an issue here.
Mhm.
And it went back. I went back. At that point, I was already in school. The Rodney King situation had already happened, but I went back to to that, and I started reading up on what had happened, and I started really seeing the injustice, the fact that nobody got punished for it, the fact that even though there was a video, this man was beat, this all the people involved uh, got off without even a slap in the hand. And then when the riots occurred, the villains were the people rioting,
Mhm.
not the police that caused the anger that led to the violence, but the the
Not
riot.
even the people that got them off of the violence that they caused.
Exactly, exactly. But I mean, I think we mentioned it earlier, in our personal conversation. It goes back to that the voice of the unheard is violence, man. It's been boiling in the country for a long time. We've all minorities, whether it was the Chinese being not allowed to immigrate into the country for a long time, whether it was the Hispanics and Mexicans that were sent back to Mexico, even though they were given the ability to immigrate to the country and to work here legally. Whether it was the blacks that had to go through slavery and being set free. It's been so long, and we still don't see that progress. We should all be loving each other by now. I've always felt our country would be such a beacon to the world. We're already a beacon, but we would be the lighting guide if we just learn to get along.
Right. I agree. And like I said, I mean, you hear that term "land of the free," and it's even in the national anthem, the song that's supposed to represent the nation. The very second to last line is, "It's the land of the free and the home of the brave." Like, it's like, how can you realistically have that song represent a country who hasn't had any kind of equality since its beginning? And then you look at guys like Colin Kaepernick, who saw this and peacefully tried to bring this up and let people know that there are things in this country that are going on that need awareness. And look what happened to him.
He was
Why is it
vilified.
every time that we as a people, we ask for equality, we ask for equality, we get spit on, we get attacked, we get the well, but, or we get, oh, it wasn't me, so ain't nothing I can do about it. That's where the dialogue breaks down. Is because that the things that happened are continuing to happen, just under a different mask.
Yep.
These laws that they're writing and that have been written are the same ones from a long time ago. Ain't nothing really changed. They just put a pretty little bow on it just to make it seem like it's equal. But when you get down to the looks at it and look at the disproportionate numbers of the same people, black, white, Hispanic, any other, and you see them get charged with the same crime, and they're supposed to be under the same, penalty code, that why is it not equal there?
Yeah, no, I mean, see, because I agree with you on that. It's a matter of we call it the land of opportunity, but the point is that not everybody has an equal opportunity.
Right.
Like you said, that's why it's so disproportionate. Blacks and Hispanics are going to jail more than whites. and any other race, because the opportunity to grow isn't there. And if we don't see that opportunity, then we're vilified. Like, I'll give you an example. My dream as a kid, um, my dream as a kid was to become a pediatrician. I
Mhm.
wanted to be a pediatrician, and ever since I was 5 years old, that was my dream. And I'll never forget the first time I told my mom that that was my dream. She turned around and said, "Do you have a backup plan?"
Wow.
And, I'm pretty sure that she didn't want to tell me that she wanted to be, I hear all my white friends say, like, "Oh no, my parents supported my dream from the very beginning." And I'm pretty sure that's what my mom always wanted, to support me in my dream. But she also understood that I might not have that opportunity. And she had to be the one that gave me the truth, that made me understand, if you don't have a backup plan, then you might end up doing things that you don't want to do. And I
Mhm.
actually thank her now that she did that, because I didn't end up joining any gangs. I, could have. I always say it was easier when I was in middle school to get cocaine than it was to get a sandwich. um, and I didn't end up becoming a drug addict. I didn't end up becoming a drug dealer. I ended up becoming what I believe to be a good man. Um, but it could have so easily gone the other way. And we're
Right.
vilifying these people. It's not their fault that they went through that. It's that they never had the opportunity to do anything other than that.
Exactly. And with that, like, I'm glad we brought up the word opportunity, because it's like I understand that most people's opportunities aren't the same, and that's what I need everybody to understand as well. It's like, you know, what opportunities I may have here in Texas may not be the same opportunity that some people in, let's say, like Missouri or Ohio or other places like that with big rural populations have. Like, they don't have the same opportunities, so they have to turn to what is going to be beneficial to them and their family and how they survive. So with that, you got to understand that, people aren't waking up every morning deciding to do these things out of, the heck of it. They do it as a necessity, you know what I mean? That people need to do what they need to do to survive. And to vilify that and to, punish instead of trying to help isn't really helping. And that's a big problem in this country, is that instead of helping, they want to vilify you and take away everything that you have, that you worked so hard for. And then you turn around and you're like, wait, how is this making me a better person? How are you providing me with tools to be better in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we do that across the board. Like, for example, the immigrants, people that are immigrating from Central America, from Mexico. They're coming in here, and I've heard this numerous times, where they're saying, "Oh, I wouldn't put my kids through that. I wouldn't bring my kids through hundreds of miles, of peril. I would just stay where I'm at." And
Mm.
that's such an easy mentality to have when you have everything good, when your kids are okay. But it's just another way to vilify somebody,
Yeah.
because the reality is that, you know, when someone wants a better life for their children, they are going to be doing that. They are going to be putting themselves and their children at harm's way, because none of us, we're humans. None of us assume the bad thing's going to happen to us. We
Mhm.
always have the hope that we're going to be one of the lucky ones. So that hope is what's driving them here, and for us to tell them, "Oh, there is no hope, um, because you're not the kind of person we want," um, is just creating another villain where a villain doesn't exist.
Right. And I feel like, I'm glad you brought that up, hope, because during that winter storm that we all just recently suffered through here in Texas, it looks like, the very people that, Republicans are saying are the rapists and the murderers and the killers is the same place where Ted Cruz went to get refuge from the winter storm.
Yeah,
So
and that's, I've
is it
seen all the,
hypocrisy?
yeah, yeah, I see all the memes that I don't know if you've seen them, that point out the similarities. Oh, Ted Cruz wanted to take his children to somewhere where they'd be safe and they'd be fed and they'd have heat, and that's exactly what these people want.
And running
Uh,
water, clean running water.
yep, yep,
The same
exactly.
thing that the people that caravan, those caravan of terrorists that Trump likes so call them, was coming to get away from in their country. Now, mind you, you add on top of that, all that stuff, you add on top of the fact that there are literally gang wars going on in your neighborhood, and you want to get away from that. So you come to somewhere that where you also heard the land of opportunity, the land of the free. You make your way here just to find out that nope, it's not as free as you think it is. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I understand there's a process, but to shoo away people who are fleeing is technically they're technically refugees.
yep,
And I'm pretty sure that somewhere in the Geneva Convention it states where we have the ability to aid people who are refugees. I'm not saying to let them all in. I'm saying that there is a process. There are some things that we can do to give them refuge while we figure out how we can help if we can.
yeah. I mean, we tout ourselves as the guardians of the world, pretty much the beacon to the world. We are the greatest country in the world, but what are we doing to show that we are?
Right.
Instead of creating uh, these problems within our own country, we should
Mm-hmm.
be united to help solve all the problems within the world. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is that if we don't help them, their problems become our problems. Because you're right. If in a way, they are kind of right, and I'm sure you might disagree with me on this one, but um, when they say, oh, they're sending over all of their bad people, they're not sending over all of their bad people. They're sending a lot of good people, but the good people are also the ones that are going to wait. The good
Mm-hmm.
people are also the ones that are going to try to get in here the right way. And the bad people are the ones that say, I don't care. I'm getting in there no matter what I
No
have to
matter
do to
what.
get in there. So if we don't make it easier to sift the good people from the bad, then what we are doing to ourselves is allowing the bad that don't care about the rules to get in here first.
Mm-hmm.
And once they're here, then that's the image that we have of everybody else. The there's an uncle that I have that went to New York once, and I don't think I've ever told this story to anybody, so I gotta apologize for my uncle to you. He went to New York once, got mugged. Unfortunately, the mugger was a black person,
Mm-hmm.
and this uncle died hating black people. And all my life, I kept telling him, "You're hating all black people because one black guy, knocked your teeth out." Like, that makes no sense, to me. But to my uncle, all black people were violent and evil, and all they wanted was to hurt because that one person did that. And that's
Right.
what we're doing with these immigrants. I see it all the time. One immigrant commits one crime and automatically it's all immigrants are bad. And
Mm-hmm.
yet we have Americans, uh, you know usually, sadly, white Americans that are going into churches and killing people, and that are going into schools and killing people, and oh, they had mental problems. That
Right.
one, immigrant, he didn't have mental problems, even though he grew up in a war-torn country where he didn't have any food, where he didn't have any other way to get food besides violence. He doesn't have mental issues. But this
Mm-hmm.
one, kid that grew up in a good neighborhood with all the opportunities, with everything, that shouldn't have been shooting he's the one with mental issues.
Right. And it's not even that. I mean, yeah, that's one of many examples. I mean, to keep it fair, there are plenty of kids who have, disadvantages and don't do anything, you know, and they get looked at the exact same way. So I mean, in the optics of staying fair, you have the same for both sides. And with what you're saying, yes, I'm agreeing with. And you have tons of black kids who get caught with guns all the time at school. You have black kids that come to school with all kinds of drugs and weapons. It's a fact. It's fact. These are things that we want to keep out of the schools. But you got to see on the other side of the spectrum, it's happening too. You know what I mean? And it becomes where not really where the line is, but where do we stop making excuses for one side and vilifying and dehumanizing another? And that is like really the cut dry, the end point of it is, yes, we're not saying that it's not happening on the other side. We all know that it does. We all know that there are black kids, Hispanic kids, or whatever race that gets caught with drugs at school, with guns at school. There's been instances where I'm sure there's been black kids, Hispanic kids that have brought guns to the school and shot at people at school. And I'm pretty sure that all of them have been punished. But I guarantee you, if you look at how they were punished, how it was made to look while they were being punished, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. And I mean, with that, like it's just like you said, accountability. If we're going to hold one accountable for their actions, then it has to be at the same level as we're holding the others accountable. Like I'll give you an example. And I don't know if you wanted to talk politics right now, but the best example that I can give you is going back to Kaepernick. Kaepernick, all he did was kneel. That was a peaceful way of exercising his freedom, and he was called a bastard, an animal, because he did that. And then we have a person who incited a riot being president. And then they're saying, oh, but he has freedom of speech. So whatever he said, it's not his fault that these wackos took his words and decided to riot. So you're telling me that it's being treated equally when one person knelt down, didn't even open their mouth, and was called a bastard, and the other person opened their mouth with hate, and it's freedom of speech?
Exactly.
I mean,
that's why my question was, how realistic is that phrase?
exactly. And regardless of what your points of views are, the main point of being an American is to make, and I'm going to steal the phrase that we've been using, but I think the reason why it attracted all these people is because the point of every American is to make America great. But we don't make America great by keeping it divided.
Yep.
The only way to keep America great, the only way to make America great, because it's not great,
Not
unfortunately. The only way to make America great is to make it one country. And the only way we can do that is by having these types of dialogues where, it doesn't matter what your belief is. Like I'll going into that, I think it's funny because we always try to give titles to people to diminish their worth. As minorities, we've had those titles. I will never use the title that was used to diminish your worth, but I know as a Hispanic, I'll use the ones that were used to diminish my worth that I've heard when
Mm-hmm.
I've been called a wetback, when I've been called a spick. Um, and even though those are no longer acceptable, now we're using other titles. Now I have people, oh, you're such a socialist. So now I'm being given, and I'm not. I honestly don't agree with a lot of what socialism as a government offers. So I'm not, and don't consider myself a socialist. But that's the title, the label that I'm being given now, or
Mm-hmm.
the, oh, you're a Trumpist, or oh, you're a liberal. Those are still ways to diminish my worth. You might not be, you might not think you're insulting my race anymore, but if you're grouping one race as liberals, then isn't that still using, my race to label me as an inferior American?
I mean, that does come to who you ask. I mean, I've been called a liberal, and I'm like, do you really know what the word liberal means? Like, it's like you're telling me that me being an understanding person and listening to people's views is a bad thing. I don't understand how that's a bad thing because I want to listen to everyone's views. I don't understand. I think everyone does have I mean, according to your constitution, everybody has the right to feel what they feel and speak how they feel. Like, why is that wrong? I'm open to listen to how you feel, and just as long as you're willing to listen to how I feel, I think that's fair. And I
Right.
don't know why I'm wrong for that.
No, yeah, and see, and the problem is that a lot of the times I think that, like I said, it's just a word that's being thrown out so that in their mind they you're lower than them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name. You know how bad I am with names. For those of you just watching, I am extremely bad with names. I can't remember what his name was, but one of the uh, uh, senators that was involved in the creation of the 14th Amendment said it best when he was describing the use of the N word. He said, you're trying to describe them as the N word because of the color of their skin, and to me, the real N word people are the ones that have a black soul. So you're white, your skin could be as white as snow, but if you have a black soul, you're the N.
Right.
And and I love that quote from him because um, it's the same thing that's happening now. You're trying to you're trying to tell me that I am a socialist, and that, or that I'm a liberal, but when you really look at who you're supporting, when you really look at the laws that they're offering, that they're putting in front of you, that you're eating up, that you're swallowing, it sounds like communism. And so by calling me a socialist, you're actually turning, like, you're undermining me, but you're not understanding that you're also turning yourself, converting yourself into something that you might not want to be.
Right.
And the worst thing, the hardest thing for us as human beings to do is to take a look at ourselves. It's so easy to judge others.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for us to judge others and to uh, judge them for whatever other reason, um, you know for whatever thing we feel that they are inferior. But it's so hard to take a look at ourselves and say, how did I get to this point? And is the point that I'm at where I want to be? And
Right.
that's what frightens me about our country right now. That our country seems to be going into a direction that I think in a generation we're going to look back and we're going to say, how in the world did we let that happen?
Yeah.
How did we get to the point where we're at right now when we had the opportunity, um, and the tools to make it better?
Right. I mean, and the thing is, and going, this is going to transition into the point that you were ready to get into earlier. that when the rules that they set up, and when they're so used to us being like play by rules, play by rules, play by rules, and then we're like, okay, we'll play by your rules, we'll do it your way, and then they're like, wait a minute, you're doing it our way, we got to switch it up. You know what I mean? Like, wait, they won using our tactic. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So now you got to switch it up. So now I know you're ready for this one. So the 2020 election, right? We all know the big lie. We all know the whole. We know. I'm not even going to bring it up but that has caused some backlash already. It's already like, you have a record number of minorities that start voting, and now all of a sudden it's a problem. Now all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, we got to go back to the drawing board. So for years, souls to the polls was a thing. Black churches would gather their congregation and go vote. Many of these people, this was their only opportunity to get out and vote because they had no other way of getting around, no other way of getting transportation, no way of being able to get help to move back and forth. Mm-hmm. This was their only way of going to do it. And now, states like Georgia, I'm just like, I'm because I'm originally from Georgia, and this doesn't really surprise me, seeing the things that I saw growing up. It doesn't. Now, they just have a reason to do it based off of one lie that everybody knows is a fallacy of one person. So you mean to tell me that one man convinced all these people that the people that are making these laws in this country are the ones that are getting ready to overthrow him from power? Then have the nerve to say, just 2 weeks after that, go vote using the same system for the two senators running in Georgia, mm-hmm. using the same system. But mine was rigged. Nobody else's was tampered with, but only mine. Using this system. So you mean to tell me, so all of the other Republicans that won their seats and won their tickets, none of them was tampered with, but yours was the only one that was tampered with. And the people that were tampering with your votes only in that system are the same people who are making and writing laws. And then you wonder why for 2 months these people were talking about coming to DC and marching to Congress. You're surprised by this.
Yeah. I mean, oh Lord.
Get ready, everybody. Get ready, everybody.
Yeah. It's funny to me that we call it, or some people are saying that it was a stolen election. If you really feel that it was a stolen election, I would recommend, don't talk to your neighbors. Go into the minority sections of whatever city, whatever, talk to them, because it wasn't stolen when we were forced to go out. I know a lot of people that had never voted. Unfortunately, I don't know how it was, where you were growing up, but us growing up, we were pretty much told your vote doesn't even matter. You're Mexican. Mm-hmm. No one's going to listen to you. So we never voted. I know a lot of people that had never voted before, but they disliked this person so much that they said, you know what, I'm gonna go out and vote this time. And a lot of people, I didn't vote by mail. I went to the poll center and I voted in person, regardless of, I'm in the high. I don't know how to say it, but if I get COVID, I die. And right. Regardless of whether if I get COVID, I die, I went there. But I did that because I wanted to see the people, because I wanted to see the people voting, because I didn't want to be told this was being stolen.
Hmm.
But I understand also, if they have the ability to vote by mail, and we voted in record numbers, so it
Hmm.
wasn't stolen. When you say when you propagate that lie, you are again diminishing the voice of all of the people who finally used it.
Yep.
We've been quiet for so long because we didn't think our voice could be heard. We were
Hmm.
the trees in the forest.
Hmm.
And finally, we decided to exercise that right to vote. And oh, it must be stolen because they wouldn't have come out and voted otherwise. You know, they
Hmm.
must have voted twice or three times because how else could they have come out and voted? It's because we didn't like the person.
And honestly, if you think about it, all the places where they're claiming that the election fraud stuff is happening are in from predominantly black cities.
Yep.
Philly, the Atlanta area. Like, I mean, come on. You mean to tell me that this man was able to get on the phone and tell the Secretary of State, hey, find me 11,780 votes, and that's okay?
Yeah. I mean, even in Texas, Texas is a Republican state, but if you go back and look at how the votes went, the Rio Grande Valley, which is predominantly minority, voted Democratic. The areas that voted for the Democratic Party were the ones that
Turned it
uh,
around.
yeah, yep. And I mean, now with the laws, and it's nothing new. They still have gerrymandering laws where they're trying to divide. We already know all of that. They're trying to divide the country into so that it's more difficult for minorities to vote. But now it seems like we took two steps forward and five steps back.
Hmm.
We we're going back to the Jim Crow era where
Thank
it's
you.
like, oh my God, no, we can't have these minorities telling us what to do, so we got
Mhm.
to shut them up any way we can. And and we can't allow that to happen. We can't allow our voices to be stifled anymore. That's the beauty of the time that we live in. The
Mhm.
beauty of the time that we live in is that your voice matters now. Even growing up, I mean, I'm not that old. I know I'm a little older than you, but Mike, but I'm 35, and growing up, uh, our voices weren't as loud as they can be now.
Mhm.
And that's why it's so important not just to exercise your voice, but to exercise your voice properly, to exercise your voice with constraint. Um, so if you do that, if you're able to do it, um, then it could lead to actual change. The best example that I can give is uh, going into a restaurant, Chuck E. Cheese, in 2018. One guy made a video or a series of videos claiming that Chuck E. Cheese was not um, making new pizzas for everybody, that they were reusing slices of pizza for other customers, which was a lie. It was not true. But because that one guy used his voice,
Mhm.
Chuck E. Cheese lost about 50% of their business. Now they've lost more and it might disappear completely. Now imagine if that one voice would have been used properly, would have been used
Exactly.
to demonstrate the inequality, the injustice that we're going through. But instead of using our voices uh, in a proper way, we want to get into this little hissy fight with each other of who's right,
Mhm.
or we want to ignore it altogether. these laws, these that they're trying to push through, um, they they're going to affect all of us. You know, one of the my favorite amendments in the Constitution is the 14th Amendment. You know, and for these people to be saying, "Oh, the 14th Amendment is wrong. The 14th Amendment is a travesty." Uh, the only reason you feel that way is because you didn't benefit from it.
Exactly.
And
And
go ahead.
go ahead, Chris.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because it's like, how much more suffering do people have to go through in order for, our elected officials to stop seeing us as pawns and using us to benefit them and make them their money. You know, we go to work every day, we work hard, we pay our taxes. We want some real representation from the people who said that, hey, we're going to take care of you. We're going to go to Washington and we're going to make sure that they take care of you. And, then you got states making decisions on behalf of the people, like what we went through here in Texas. You know, we had no backup in case the grid that they said would never failed. And look what happened. This is what happens when you get arrogant people who think they know everything. This is the same thing that happened to the Titanic. Same thing. They said there's an unsinkable ship that would never sink, and what happened?
Not even God could sink this ship. That's what they said. Not even God could sink this ship.
Yeah. Well, not even God could take out that power grid, huh?
And even after that, like, okay, I don't consider myself neither Democrat nor Republican. I actually believe that the fact that we only have two parties to choose from is insane to me as a human being, because that means I have to fit in one of two categories. Like, I can't fit in. I'm too fat to fit in either category. I go into both categories there, but but the so it's not political. But then we have the governor in Texas that's saying you cannot have freedom and you and tell people they need to wear masks. They cannot exist in the same in the same country. That to me is so ridiculous, that you're telling me that I'm not free because I have to wear a mask. So does that mean then that I can walk into Walmart wearing nothing but my Speedo? Because apparently I can't have freedom and wear pants. Or does that mean that when you say something that ridiculous, if I go into Walmart, 305-pound dude wearing nothing but a Speedo, I'm going to be arrested for indecent exposure. I'm sure someone's going to call the cops on me. But now you're saying that they shouldn't require like masks? Like, it makes no sense to me. If I'm walking, even if I'm not in Walmart, even if I'm walking down the street, I remember when I was in high school, I had a weighted vest, because in high school I worked out, I ran, I had a weighted vest, and I got pulled over by the police because someone called it in that I was wearing a bulletproof vest on the street. And they had to take my vest away. They had to check it. They had to make sure, and I had to sit there while they were checking it. So you're telling me I can't walk down the street with a bulletproof vest because apparently I'm up to no good, but if I have to wear a mask, then I'm not free? What? Like, that makes no sense to me. And all we're doing is putting people in danger. Then he turns around, he does that, and 2 days later, he says, if people die from COVID, it's the president's fault because all these immigrants in America. No. If every citizen was wearing their mask, then it wouldn't matter if the immigrants had COVID, because we're protecting ourselves. but you just told us 2 days ago we don't have to wear our masks. So it's not the immigrants' fault. It is your fault when we get COVID because you told them they didn't have to wear masks and they're not going to get this disease. Now, I also see the other point, the other side of it. You want to be free. You want to be able to enjoy your freedom, but freedom has always come at a cost.
Always.
Freedom has never been free.
And on that, just I'm a big history buff. I love history. And I'm glad you recently brought this up because within the last maybe 25, 30 years, the country of Haiti just finished paying off France for their freedom. And I guarantee you a whole lot of people didn't know that. France literally had been taking money through banks from the country of Haiti. And there's an American bank that also profited from this. Do you know what bank that was?
No, I don't.
Citibank. Citibank was one of the banks profiting from the descendants of slaves paying money to have their freedom to the descendants of slave owners.
Wow,
Now,
man,
if
that's
we're seeing that kind of it just travesty, like, and then Haiti requested that hey, this is wrong, give us our money back. France told them no. Like, we don't gotta pay you back. You paid us for your freedom. We good now. $21 billion that they paid. It's right there, public record. Look it up.
man, that's exactly the point, man. Freedom's never been free. It's crazy, it's insane that Haiti had to do that Haiti had to go through that. But from this point forward, even if France doesn't do the right thing and doesn't pay that back, from this point forward, Haiti can move forward from there.
Right.
Haiti
But it's hard for them to do when they're getting ravaged by hurricanes and all these other natural disasters. Who's helping them though? You know what I mean? When you got a president who's going to Puerto Rico and like he's like doing jump shots with paper towels when these people are in need, that's kind of like, I mean, it's a little insensitive. And as a man who has all this power, you're the most powerful man in the free world. And this is how you're treating people who call to you for help. It's the humanity part of it as well. It's the having, compassion for other people. I understand freedom of speech. Hey, say what you say, how you say it. It is what it is. But realize that your message goes to people. And those people have feelings. And the same way that you would feel some type of way if somebody says something out of the way to you, you should really think of that before you open your mouth and start talking to other people too. I understand there's good and bad on both sides. Understandable. That's perfectly fine. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother dialogue. But the way you go about it, let's have some sort of grace and love in what we say and how we say it to each other. That is how we start to begin to understand. And that is how we open the dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. When you going back to the dismissing, what did he call people from those kinds of countries? Shithole countries.
Yes, shithole countries and deplorable.
Shithole countries and deplorable. Again, you're you're vilifying them without ever knowing them.
Getting to know them.
And like you said, you can have some. It's okay. I don't see it as bad to have some degree of ignorance, but to be that, to use that kind of verbiage, like the example that I can give is a few years ago, work, as you know, sent me to Guatemala.
Hmm.
I had never been to Guatemala. I remember that at the time, it was either they had said they were either going to send me to Colombia or Guatemala. I had always heard what Colombia had beautiful women, so I wanted Colombia. Uh,
Oh man,
Honestly,
wifey on you about that one right now, boy.
my wife, my wife will probably be on me about that one. But hey, nothing bad with just looking, right? Nothing bad with just looking. But I remember when they said, "Oh, you're going to Guatemala," I was like, "Oh, there's not going to be any beautiful women. They're probably going to be all, short and all still wearing like the 1900s get up and so on and so on." And then I get there, and man, like I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with their food.
Oh, I mean, I was about to say because you sent me some pictures, man, of some steak, and I'm telling you, I already told everybody that I know about that, and I'm like, that's my number one reason for it to go.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. There you go. And y'all can see, I mean, I'm not shy when it comes to food. I'm gonna if you want to find the best food, you follow the fat man. That's the way I've always said it. Um, eh, but you know, it's okay. It was okay that I had that prejudgment because I still gave it a chance.
Yeah.
The one of the first things I remember, one of the first things that the taxi driver told me as he was taking me to the hotel was, "Oh, you don't want to go out on these streets by yourself. You're going to get killed." And had I let that one person um, dictate how I viewed the rest of the country,
Mhm.
then I would have never fallen in love with the country. Once I got to work, once some of my employees were like, "No, David, they're lying to you. Like the guy just scared you. Like let's go out, let's do this." Man, I fell in love with the country. And it breaks my heart. I've always said, or after I went to Guatemala, I started saying we should never call a country a third world country until we look at their restrooms. We should judge countries by how clean their restrooms are. I went there and not one restroom was dirty. Here
Wow.
in the US,
Yeah, I'm
you
about to
go
say I've
to
been to a few
Walmart.
strikes where I've been like, nah, I'll hold it for a few more miles.
Yeah. And that brings it back. We're calling it a shithole country when we can't even keep our restrooms clean. What right do we have to judge them without ever giving them that chance? And we might have to help them. We might have to help them, but helping them might bring us benefit later on.
Right.
One of the things that, and this is maybe the most socialist I'll get, is one of the things that I've always thought our country is missing is help for those who show uh, promise. Like I'll
Hmm.
give you an example, and this is another way that I believe, unfortunately, minorities are sometimes kept down. My mother passed away when I was really young. I was only 20 years old when my mother passed away. And I was in school. I was going to my goal of being a doctor. But when my mother passed away, I had to adopt my little sister. And even though my mom never did uh, accept, assistance from the government, I felt that, I can't go to school full time and take care of a child full time and work full time to support ourselves
Hmm.
without some help from the government. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget when I applied for assistance from the government, what the lady told me. Um, uh, by the way, I want everybody to understand, just, if you're political, this was in 2006. This was not a Democratic president. This was right in the middle of George W. Bush, a Republican. And I'll never forget what she told me. She said, "You don't qualify for help, mijo. Um, but I feel really bad for you guys. So I'm going to tell you how you're going to qualify for help. Tell your sister to drop out at 14 and get pregnant. And then you guys will qualify for assistance. And once you graduate with your degree, with your PhD, then you can go back and help your sister get her GED." And I looked at that lady and I said, "So you're telling me to prostitute my sister for a degree? That's
Wow.
the only way my country will help me." How many people have potential to become great scientists, great doctors, great politicians, and never get the opportunity to do so because of the barriers that we have created for them?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the nerve, you know, my mom raised me to always look at myself and look at the decisions that I made. But at that time, I remember being so angry at the situation that I considered becoming a drug dealer, that I considered becoming a mule, that I considered all of these other ways that would have made me easy money to reach the goal that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
reach. And then I would have been vilified. I would have been called a criminal without anybody ever knowing that the only reason that that choice was made was because the right choice couldn't be made by my country. uh when we understand, like, if we've never had that, if we've never been in a position in which we're told to make a decision like that, we cannot diminish the point of view of those who have had it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't tell somebody, "Oh no, this country is perfect just the way it is," when they felt the injustice behind it. What
Right.
we should do is exactly what you and I are trying to do. Sit down and have that discussion. Tell me your experiences. Show me your experiences. Ultimately, that experience soured me for a long time. I dropped out of school. I dropped out of school to take care of my little sister. And even after she graduated school and she went to college, or to whatever her vocation is, I chose, barely now at 35 is when I'm finally wanting to go back to school because of how much that soured me. I
Mm-hmm.
was in my opinion, I was a person that had potential. And that experience of losing my mother so young and being told by my government, "Oh, it's either you or your sister, one of you can't have the life you want," soured me so bad that it's taking me so long to get back up. And that's what we do to our children. That's what we do to our world. When Haiti hears our leader calling them a shithole country,
Mm-hmm.
how can then we when Mexico and Central America hears our leader calling them criminals, rapists, then how can we expect for them not to come into our country and prove him right?
Yeah, I've always said, you call somebody something long enough, they're gonna prove your point. You know what I mean? And um, I always want to try to end our show with something positive. With all the negative going on in the world, we all need some positive. So here in Austin recently, within I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, um, a group up here known as the Black Austin Coalition, they took up an agenda item um, up to our state leaders, and they told them that there are things that need to be changed. There are a lot of grievances that our people are having. We have a lot that we need to come together and understand. And you know they came together, made up an agenda, and they brought it before, everybody. And yesterday the agenda passed. So I'm going to just read off a few things that are on that agenda. It's called Agenda 67, Item 67, if you want to take the time to look it up. But there are two big things on this for me that are just like huge, because to me, it's showing that there is starting to become an open door for dialogue. For me, the biggest item on this that stood out for me was, the providing of reconciliation for all of the damage that has been done by systemic racism, systemic, just division throughout just the city of Austin. And now that they have recognized that this stuff does happen, now we can start going about how we're going to make change for it. And so I just want to take the time to say, thank you to the city of Austin for hearing us all out. We have been, after this for a long time. Big shout out to a big close friend of mine that was a big part of it, Dex X. I appreciate you coming through, letting everybody know what's going on here in the city of Austin, because things like this can go on all over the world or all over the country when people stand up and say, hey, we're people, we have basic human rights, and we just want a few things to be recognized. We don't want anything in return. We just want recognition of these things happening. So there are other things that are in it. They wanted to do a lot from this, and the city is going to go. It did agree to it. It was a unanimous yes. So that's a big thing. Like I said, when you get a chance, look up on it. It's going to do great things, starting here in Austin, and hopefully with Austin we can, have these guys take it outside of Austin and start to spread it around the great state of Texas, so that way we can make sure that everybody gets treated fairly, no matter the situation, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you've been through. Everybody should be deserved. Every person in this state, in this country, deserves to be treated as a human, no matter what's going on, no matter what your background is, no matter, what was. You're human now. You deserve to be treated that way. And I think this is a good way of starting out with, our government, our local government, starting to realize that, things need to be changed. And, the mayor of Austin was very open-minded, listened to everything. And when they made their decision, he actually reached out and said that he was ready to make these changes and help, whatever we needed to make these changes. So, that's my positive for the week. Omar, any last thoughts you want to get out before we?
I think I'll finish. I always go with mantras, and I'm sure someone a lot smarter than me probably said this before, but I'll finish with just to give the audience a little bit of what we're trying to do here. Whenever there's darkness, the only way that darkness can get weak, the only way that we can get rid of darkness is by bringing it into the light. Mm-hmm. That's the only way you're ever going to get rid of darkness. There will always be a shadow, but we can make that shadow smaller the more light we shine on it. What we're trying to do, or what we're doing, is making sure that we bring that light in with the one thing that every single human needs and every single human craves. And that's the word right behind you, Mr. Mike: love. So you don't have to agree with someone to love them. You don't have to accept everything they do to show them that love. And by loving each other and having these conversations, we can all experience the darkness, so that once we bring that darkness into the light, we can diminish this feeling that we have, and we can let our country shine throughout the world.
True statement, man. So, um, again, everybody, we really appreciate you tuning in. We're gonna try to do this weekly if we have, it's time permitted, but we're gonna try to make this weekly. For next week, I definitely am gonna talk about dive a little bit more in, get them a little bit more controversial. We're gonna talk about the topic of the criminal justice system and the inequalities within that, and I'm pretty sure that's going to get pretty deep. Um, Omar, you want to leave any social media information for the folks, just in case you want to have any, if they have any questions, they want to get in contact with you?
Not today. Maybe next time we'll leave my social media information. For now,
Uh,
we'll leave yours.
all right. Yeah. So I'm just gonna leave Twitter. That's the only thing that I'm really on. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's Lobo42 Thomas. Feel free to follow. I follow back. If you have any comments, please give that. We're open to hearing comments. Just as long as we're as long as we can be civil. I'm not gonna argue with anybody. I'm not gonna call you out of your name. I'm not gonna do none of that. Like, you have your opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. Your feelings are your feelings. That's on you. I'm not here to do anything about that. I'm here just to speak my truth and what people in my community are saying that need to be changed. And I'm sure this is what Omar is doing too. So hopefully we get some more, to tune in. Hopefully we get more as each, week we roll them out. But until then, you guys stay safe. And please remember that COVID is real, man. I mean, this stuff is real. Like, for real. I've worked in the hospitals and I've seen what this stuff has done to people. And y'all just be safe out there. If anything else, just be safe and just treat each other with love.